The rain came down in sheets that Thursday morning, drumming against the windshield as Elena pulled into her driveway at 6:45. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and her eyes burned from exhaustion. She had just finished a 16-hour shift at Memorial Hospital, where she worked as a trauma nurse. 16 hours of blood, tears, and broken bones. 16 hours of holding hands and wiping foreheads and telling families that everything would be okay, even when she wasn't sure it would be. All Elena wanted was a hot shower, her warm bed, and maybe 5 hours of sleep before her next shift. But as she turned off the engine and sat in the silence, something felt wrong. Marcus's truck was still in the driveway. He should have left for his construction job an hour ago. The porch light was on. The curtains in the living room were drawn back, which he never did before leaving. Elena grabbed her purse and stepped out into the rain. The water soaked through her scrubs immediately, cold and sharp. She hurried to the front door, fumbling with her keys. Her hands were shaking, not from the cold, from something else, some instinct she couldn't name. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. The house was warm, too warm, and there was a smell in the air, perfume, sweet and floral. Not hers, Marcus? Her voice echoed in the hallway. He appeared from the kitchen, dressed in jeans and a clean flannel shirt. His face was blank. No smile, no warmth. Just a cold, empty stare that made Elena's stomach drop. "What's going on?" she asked. "Why aren't you at work?" Marcus crossed his arms and leaned against the doorframe. "Sit down, Elena." "I don't want to sit down. I want to know what's happening." I said sit down. His voice was hard, sharp. It cut through the air like glass. Elena had never heard him speak to her that way. Not in 9 years of marriage. Not even during their worst fights. She moved slowly to the couch and sat on the edge, her wet scrubs leaving a damp spot on the cushion. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears that Marcus stood in front of her, hands in his pockets. "I'm going to say this once. I need you to pack your things and leave. Today. Now." The words didn't make sense. Elena stared at him, waiting for the punchline, for the smile, for the moment when he would tell her this was some kind of sick joke. But he didn't smile. "What are you talking about?" She whispered. "I'm done, Elena. This marriage is over. I've been seeing someone else. Her name is Vanessa, and she's moving in this afternoon." Elena felt the room tilt. She gripped the edge of the couch to steady herself. "You're seeing someone else?" "For 8 months. I love her, and I'm not going to keep pretending anymore." 8 months. He had been lying to her face for 8 months. Every kiss, every "I love you." Every night he came home late and said he was working overtime. All of it. Lies. "Marcus, we can talk about this." Her voice cracked. "If you're unhappy, we can go to counseling. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix." He looked at her like she was a stranger. "I don't love you anymore?" "I haven't for a long time." The cruelty of it took her breath away. Elena stood up, her legs trembling. "This is my home, too. You can't just throw me out." Marcus stepped closer. His face was cold, calculating. "Actually, I can. My name is on the mortgage. My name is on the deed. This is my house, Elena, not yours." "That's not true. We bought this house together." "No, I bought this house. You just live in it." He glanced at his watch. "Vanessa will be here in 3 hours. I suggest you get moving." Elena's mind was spinning. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. She felt like she was drowning. Where am I supposed to go? Marcus shrugged. "That's not my problem." He walked past her toward the stairs. She heard his footsteps, heard him moving around in the bedroom, heard him humming dot, while her entire world fell apart. Elena stood frozen in the living room, the rain still pounding against the windows. She felt like her body had disconnected from her brain. Everything was moving in slow motion. The ticking of the clock on the wall, the drip of water from her soaked scrubs onto the floor, the distant sound of Marcus moving around upstairs like this was just another normal day. But nothing about this was normal. She forced herself to move. One step, then another. She climbed the stairs slowly, her legs heavy as concrete. When she reached the bedroom, she found Marcus pulling clothes out of the closet. Her clothes. He was tossing them onto the bed in a careless pile. "What are you doing?" Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "Helping you pack." He didn't even look at her. "You're moving too slow." She walked to the bed and stared at the heap of her belongings. Dresses she had worn to hospital fundraisers. The blue sweater her mother had given her last Christmas. The pajamas she wore every night. All of it thrown together like garbage. "Marcus, please." Her voice broke. "We've been married for 9 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" He finally turned to face her. His eyes were empty. "It meant something once. But people change, Elena. I changed. And I deserve to be happy. And I don't? You'll be fine. You're strong. You've always been strong." The dismissiveness in his tone made something inside her crack. She had been strong for him. Strong when he lost his job 3 years ago and spent 6 months on the couch feeling sorry for himself. Strong when his mother passed away and he couldn't get out of bed for weeks. Strong when money was tight and she worked double shifts to keep them afloat. And this was how he repaid her. "Where is she?" Elena asked suddenly. "Where's Vanessa?" "At her place. Packing her things." "Does she know you're married?" Marcus hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. "She knows. And she doesn't care?" "She understands that my marriage was already over. We're just making it official." Elena felt a wave of nausea. "How did you meet her?" "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters to me." He sighed like she was being difficult. "At a bar. 6 months after we moved here. She was the bartender. We got to talking. One thing led to another. 6 months after they moved here. That meant he had started cheating less than a year into living in this house. The house they had bought together as a symbol of their future. The house she had painted and decorated and filled with memories. "I gave up everything for you," Elena said quietly. "I left my family, my friends. I moved to this town because you got a better job here. And this is how you treat me. I didn't ask you to give up anything. You didn't have to ask. I did it because I loved you. Well, maybe you shouldn't have." The words hit her like a slap. Elena stumbled backward, her hand pressed against her chest. She couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. She felt like she was going to collapse. "You need to leave now." Marcus's voice was flat, final. "I mean it, Elena. I want you gone before Vanessa gets here. And if I refuse, then I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing." Elena stared at him. This man, this stranger wearing her husband's face. "You would really do that? Try me." She wanted to scream, to throw something, to shake him until he remembered who they used to be. But she couldn't. She was too tired, too broken, too numbed. So she did the only thing she could do. She started packing. Elena moved like a ghost through the house, shoving her belongings into 2 suitcases. She didn't fold anything, didn't organize. She just grabbed whatever she could reach and stuffed it in. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, the framed photo of her mother, her nursing certificates, the small wooden box her grandmother had given her before she died. Marcus watched from the doorway, arms crossed, checking his phone every few minutes. He looked bored, impatient, like she was taking too long to ruin his day. "How much longer?" he asked, I'm going as fast as I can. Not fast enough. Elena zipped up the first suitcase and started on the second. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely work the zipper. Tears streamed down her face, but she wiped them away angrily. She refused to let him see her completely fall apart. When the second suitcase was full, she dragged them both to the top of the stairs. They were heavy, too heavy, but she didn't ask Marcus for help. She knew he wouldn't give it. She carried them down one at a time, bumping them against each step. By the time she reached the bottom, her arms were aching and her chest was heaving. She stood in the entryway, looking around the house one last time. The kitchen where she had cooked hundreds of meals. The living room where they had watched movies on Friday nights. The small garden out back where she had planted tomatoes last spring. 9 years of her life. Gone. I need to get the rest of my things, she said. My books. My grandmother's dishes. I'll send them to you, Marcus interrupted. Just tell me where you end up. I don't know where I'm going to end up. Then call me when you figure it out. Elena turned to face him. You're really going to do this? You're really going to throw me out of my own home with nowhere to go? It's not your home, Elena. How many times do I have to say it? She wanted to argue, to fight. But what was the point? He had made up his mind, and nothing she said was going to change it. She pulled her phone out of her pocket and called the only person she could think of. Her best friend, Carla. It rang twice before Carla's voice came through, bright and cheerful. Hey, girl. What's up? Carla. Elena's voice broke. I need help. The cheerfulness vanished instantly. What happened? Marcus. He's kicking me out. He's been cheating on me. I don't know where to go. I need somewhere to stay. Oh my God, Elena. Yes, of course. Come to my place right now. Do you need me to come get you? No, I have my car. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Drive safe, okay? I'll be waiting. Elena hung up and looked at Marcus one last time. I want you to know something. I loved you with everything I had. And you destroyed me. I hope Vanessa was worth it. He didn't respond. He just opened the front door and stood there, waiting for her to leave. Elena picked up her suitcases and walked out into the rain. Carla lived in a small apartment on the east side of town. A cozy second-floor unit with plants on the windowsills and warm yellow walls. When Elena knocked on the door, Carla opened it immediately and pulled her into a fierce hug. Come inside. You're soaked. Elena stepped into the warmth of the apartment and felt her knees buckle. Carla caught her and guided her to the couch, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Tell me everything. It took Elena 20 minutes to get the whole story out. She kept stopping to cry, choking on the words, struggling to believe that this was actually happening. Carla listened without interrupting, her face growing darker with every sentence. When Elena finished, Carla stood up and started pacing. I'm going to kill him. I swear to God, Elena. I'm going to drive over there and... Don't. Elena's voice was tired, hollow. It won't change anything. Carla sat back down and took Elena's hands. You're staying here as long as you need. That's not a question. But we need to figure out our next steps. Did he really say the house is in his name? He said his name is on the mortgage and the deed. And you believed him? Elena hesitated. I don't know. He always handled the finances. He said it was easier that way. Carla's eyes narrowed. Do you have any paperwork? Bank statements? Anything that shows who actually owns the house? Elena thought about it. I have a safe deposit box at the bank. Some documents are in there, but I'm not sure what. Then that's where we start. First thing tomorrow morning, we go to that bank and we pull everything out. We need to see what we're actually dealing with here. Elena nodded weakly. She felt so tired, so defeated. Part of her just wanted to curl up and never move again. But Carla wasn't having it. She squeezed Elena's hands tighter. "Listen to me. I know this hurts. I know you feel like your world just ended. But you are one of the toughest women I know. You save lives every single day. You don't give up on your patients, and you're not going to give up on yourself. You hear me?" Elena looked at her friend. Carla's eyes were fierce, protective, loving. "I hear you," Elena whispered. "Good. Now let's get you some dry clothes and some tea. Tomorrow we fight." The next morning, Elena was at the bank when it opened. Her hands trembled as she signed in and waited for the clerk to retrieve her safe deposit box. She carried the metal box to a private room, took a deep breath, and opened it. Inside were her passport, birth certificate, nursing licenses, and a thick folder of documents. She pulled out the folder and began sorting through it. Bank statements, old tax returns, the title to her car, and then she saw it, a deed for the house on Maple Street. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She stared at the document, reading it once, twice, 3 times. The house was in her name. Only her name. She remembered now. Her uncle had passed away 7 years ago and left her $60,000. She had used it as a down payment on the house 2 years before she even met Marcus. When they got married, Marcus had suggested adding his name to the deed. He said it would make things simpler, but somehow it never happened. There was always an excuse. They were too busy planning the wedding. Then Marcus was between jobs. Then they just forgot Dot, except Elena hadn't forgotten. She had hesitated. Some quiet voice in the back of her mind had whispered to wait. To keep this one thing in her name. She had never told Marcus that she hesitated on purpose. But now, sitting in this cold bank room, she understood why. The house was hers. Marcus didn't pay the mortgage. She did. The payment came out of her account every month, automatically. She had just never paid attention because Marcus said he was handling everything. He had lied about all of it. Elena carefully put the documents back in the folder and returned the safe deposit box. She walked out of the bank into the bright morning sunlight, her legs feeling stronger with every step. She pulled out her phone and called Carla. "I found something. Something big." "What?" "Tell me." Elena took a deep breath. "The house is mine. It's been mine the whole time. He lied about everything." There was a pause. Then Carla let out a sound that was half laugh, half war cry. "Oh my God, Elena, do you know what this means?" Elena looked up at the clear blue sky, feeling something she hadn't felt since yesterday morning. Something that felt like hope. "It means I'm taking back what's mine." 2 days later, Elena sat in the office of Linda Marsh, a family law attorney Carla had recommended. Linda was in her late 50s with kind eyes, silver hair, and 30 years of experience helping women in situations exactly like Elena's. Right now, she was looking at Elena's documents with a smile that was almost frightening in its intensity. "Your husband made a serious mistake," Linda said. Elena blinked. "What do you mean?" "He tried to kick you out of a house that's entirely in your name. That's not just morally wrong. It could be considered unlawful eviction or even extortion, depending on how we frame it." Elena felt her heart begin to pound. "So I can go back?" "You can do more than go back." Linda leaned forward. "You can remove him from the property. And based on what you've told me about this Vanessa person already moving in, I suggest we move quickly." Elena's mind was racing. "How do we do it?" Linda's smile widened. "Leave that to me." The next morning, Elena stood outside her house with Linda, a locksmith, and 2 police officers. Marcus's truck was gone. He was at work. Elena's hands were trembling, but she kept her shoulders back and her chin up. "Ready?" Linda asked. Elena nodded. "Let's do it." The locksmith changed every lock in under an hour. While he worked, Elena walked through her house for the first time in 4 days. It looked different, wrong. There were women's clothes in the closet that weren't hers. Expensive heels. Makeup scattered across the bathroom counter. A pink robe hanging on the back of the door. Vanessa had already made herself at home. Elena felt her stomach turn. This woman had been sleeping in her bed, using her towels, living in her house like she owned it. Not anymore. Elena. Linda appeared in the doorway. The locksmith is finished. How do you want to handle their belongings? Elena thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Pack everything? His and hers. Put it all outside. Linda nodded approvingly. I'll call my moving team. By noon, the front lawn was covered with suitcases, boxes, and garbage bags full of Marcus's clothes, tools, shoes, and every other trace of his existence. Vanessa's things were piled right next to them. Dresses, shoes, makeup cases, the pink robe. Elena stood on her porch and looked at the pile. She thought she would feel satisfaction, triumph, but mostly she just felt tired and sad. 9 years of marriage reduced to garbage bags on the lawn, but it had to be done. She knew that. She was taking her life back. At 5:30 in the evening, Marcus's truck pulled into the driveway. Elena watched from the living room window as he got out and stared at the pile of belongings with his mouth hanging open. Then his face twisted into rage. He stormed up to the front door and tried his key. When it didn't work, he started pounding. Elena, open this door right now. Elena didn't move. She let him pound and scream for a full minute. Then she calmly walked to the door and opened it, keeping the chain lock in place. Marcus's face was red and sweating. What the hell do you think you're doing? Elena held up the deed through the crack in the door. Taking back what's mine. He stared at the document like it was written in another language. What is that? It's the deed to this house. My house, in my name, which I bought 3 years before I ever met you. Marcus's mouth opened and closed. That's not right. The house is in both our names. No, Marcus. It's not. It never was. You just assumed. You assumed and you lied, and you tried to throw me out of my own home. Alana's voice was steady, strong. Well, now you're the one who's leaving. You can't do this. He stepped toward the door. I have rights. I've lived here sir. One of the police officers stepped forward. I need you to step back. Marcus spun around, noticing the officers for the first time. His face went pale. What is this? Linda appeared beside Elena. This is formal notice requiring you to remove yourself and your belongings from this property immediately. If you refuse or attempt to enter again, you will be arrested for trespassing. Marcus looked from Linda to the officers to Elena. His whole body was shaking. This isn't over. I'll get a lawyer. I'll fight this. That's your right, Linda said calmly. But any competent attorney will tell you that you have no legal standing here. Marcus stood there, fists clenched, veins bulging in his neck. For a moment, Elena thought he might explode. Then slowly his shoulders dropped. He looked at the pile of his belongings on the lawn. He looked at Elena standing in the doorway of the house he thought he controlled. This isn't the woman I married, he said quietly. Elena met his eyes. No, it's not. The woman you married trusted you. She believed in you. She would have given you everything. She took a breath. You destroyed that woman when you threw her away like trash. So congratulations, Marcus. You did this to yourself. She stepped back and closed the door in his face. Elena stood with her back against the closed door, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Through the window, she watched Marcus load his belongings into his truck. It took him 5 trips. Some of it didn't fit and had to be left on the curb. She saw him pull out his phone, heard his muffled voice through the door. He was calling Vanessa, telling her what happened. His voice was high and panicked. Finally, he drove away. The taillights disappeared around the corner, and Elena was alone in her house. Her house. The silence pressed in around her, thick and heavy. She walked slowly to the couch and sat down. And then she cried. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. She cried for the marriage that had died, for the years she had wasted, for the man she thought she knew but never really did. She cried until there were no tears left, until her chest ached and her eyes burned and her throat was raw. When she finally stopped, the house was dark. The sun had set while she wasn't looking. Elena sat in the darkness for a long time, not moving, just breathing. Her phone rang. It was Carla. "I'm coming over," Carla said without waiting for a greeting. "I'm bringing wine and food and I'm staying the night. Don't argue." Elena smiled weakly. "I'm not going to argue." Carla arrived 30 minutes later with Chinese takeout, a bottle of red wine, and an overnight bag. She took one look at Alana's tear-stained face and pulled her into a hug. "You did it," Carla whispered. "You stood up for yourself. I am so proud of you." "Then why do I feel so terrible?" Carla pulled back and looked her in the eye. "Because you're not a monster. Because you actually loved him. And finding out that he never deserved that love? That hurts. It's supposed to hurt." They sat on the couch together, eating noodles and drinking wine and talking late into the night. Carla didn't try to make Elena feel better with empty platitudes. She just listened. She held space for Elena's grief. And somehow, that made all the difference. "What happens now?" Elena asked around midnight. "Now?" Carla poured them both more wine. "Now you start building the life you actually want. Not the life Marcus told you to want. The real one." Elena thought about that. For 9 years, she had shaped herself around Marcus's needs. His career, his moods, his dreams. She had made herself smaller so he could feel bigger, but he was gone now. And for the first time in almost a decade, Elena could be whoever she wanted to be. The thought was terrifying. But it was also thrilling. Over the next few weeks, Elena threw herself into reclaiming her space. She painted the bedroom a soft lavender, her favorite color that Marcus had always said was too feminine. She rearranged the furniture. She hung new curtains. She filled the house with plants and photographs, and things that made her smile. She also went through the finances with Linda's help. What she discovered made her both angry and relieved. Marcus had been lying about more than just the house. He had credit cards she didn't know about. Loans he had taken out without telling her. Debt piled on debt, all in his name. But Elena's finances were clean. She had her salary, her savings, and no debt that was actually hers. She was in a better position than she had realized. "You're going to be fine," Linda told her. "Better than fine, actually. Once the divorce is finalized, you'll be completely free of his financial mess." Elena felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had been so afraid of being destroyed by this. But she wasn't destroyed. She was standing. She was breathing. She was surviving. At work, she threw herself into her patients with renewed focus. The hospital had always been her refuge, the place where she felt most herself. Now it became her anchor. She picked up extra shifts. She volunteered for committees. She started mentoring new nurses. Her supervisor noticed. "Elena, you're doing incredible work lately. Have you thought about pursuing a leadership position?" The question took Elena by surprise. I don't know. I never really considered it." "Well, consider it. You're a natural leader. People respect you, trust you. We need more nurses like you in management." That night, Elena lay in bed thinking about it. For years, she had told herself she wasn't ambitious. that she was happy just being a floor nurse. But was that really true? Or had she convinced herself of that because Marcus didn't like the idea of her advancing? Because he felt threatened when she talked about her goals? She realized with sudden clarity that she had no idea who she really was. She had spent so long being Marcus's wife that she had forgotten to be. Elena thought it was time to remember. 3 months after Marcus left, Elena started therapy. She had resisted at first, telling herself she was fine, that she was handling everything. But Carla had gently pushed her. "You're doing great," Carla said, "but you're also carrying a lot of pain. Talking to someone might help." So Elena found a therapist named Dr. Patel, a woman in her 40s with a calm presence and kind eyes. In their first session, Elena told her everything. The marriage, the betrayal, the eviction, the fight to take back her home. Dr. Patel listened quietly. When Elena finished, she said, "You've been through a significant trauma. What Marcus did to you was cruel. But I want you to understand something important. His cruelty says nothing about your worth. It only reveals his character." Those words unlocked something in Elena. For months, she had been blaming herself, wondering what she had done wrong, what she could have done differently. But Dr. Patel helped her see the truth. Marcus's choices were his own. His betrayal was not her fault. Over the following weeks, Elena worked through layers of grief and anger. She wrote letters to Marcus that she never sent, pouring out her rage and hurt onto the page. She learned to set boundaries, to recognize her own needs, to stop making herself small. She also learned to forgive herself for trusting him, for not seeing the signs, for staying as long as she did. Forgiveness isn't about saying what he did was okay, Dr. Patel explained. It's about releasing yourself from the burden of carrying his betrayal. Elena wasn't sure she could forgive Marcus. Maybe she never would, but she could forgive herself. And that, she realized, was more important. At work, things were changing too. Elena applied for a nurse manager position and got it. She now oversaw a team of 12 nurses, helping them navigate the challenges of the job, advocating for better conditions, mentoring the newer staff. She loved it. She was good at it. And every day, she felt herself growing stronger. One evening, 6 months after everything fell apart, Elena was sitting on her porch with a cup of tea when her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Elena, it's Marcus. Please, I need to talk to you." She stared at the message for a long moment. Part of her wanted to delete it immediately, to block his number and never think about him again. But another part of her was curious. What could he possibly have to say? She didn't respond. Not that night. But the message stayed in her mind. 2 days later, he showed up at her door. Elena saw his truck pull into the driveway and felt her stomach clench. She considered not answering, but she also knew that avoiding him wouldn't give her closure. So she opened the door. Marcus looked terrible. His hair was longer and unkempt. His face was drawn. His clothes were rumpled. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. "What do you want, Marcus?" I need to talk to you, please." Elena crossed her arms. "You have 5 minutes." He took a shaky breath. "I made a mistake, Elena. The biggest mistake of my life. Vanessa and it's over. It's been over for months. She wasn't you. So now that she's gone, you come crawling back. It's not like that. I've been thinking about this for a long time. About us. About what I destroyed." His eyes were red. "I loved you, Elena. I know I didn't show it, but I did. And I hate myself for what I did." Elena looked at this man, this stranger, and felt almost nothing. The anger was gone. The hurt had faded. All that was left was a quiet, distant sadness. "Marcus," she said softly, Do you know why I stayed with you for so long? He shook his head. Because I believed in you. I believed in the man you pretended to be. The man who was kind and loving and honest. She paused. But that man never existed. The real you? The one who cheated and lied and threw me out of my own home. That's who you are. And I'm not interested in that person. Elena, please. I'm not angry at you anymore. I was for a long time. But now I'm just done. You taught me something important. That I can survive anything. That I'm stronger than I knew. She stepped back. So thank you for that, I guess. But we're never getting back together. What you broke can't be fixed. And honestly, I don't want it to be fixed. She closed the door gently but firmly. And this time, she didn't cry. She just smiled. 1 year after Marcus walked out of her life, Elena stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the collar of her blazer. She was getting ready for a big presentation at the hospital, a proposal she had spent months developing. A new patient care initiative that would improve outcomes and reduce readmission rates. She was nervous, but she was also excited. Her phone buzzed. A text from Carla. Good luck today. You're going to crush it. Proud of you, girl. Elena smiled and texted back a heart emoji. She grabbed her bag, gave her reflection one last look, and headed out the door. The house looked beautiful in the morning light. Elena had spent the past year making it truly hers. She had planted a garden, repainted the exterior, hung wind chimes on the porch. It was no longer the house she had shared with Marcus. It was her sanctuary, her home. The presentation went better than she could have hoped. The hospital board approved her proposal with enthusiasm. Her supervisor shook her hand and told her she was destined for even bigger things. Elena left the meeting room feeling 10 feet tall. That evening, she drove to her mother's house for dinner. Her mother had been her rock through everything, calling her every week, visiting when she could, reminding Elena of her strength when she couldn't see it herself. Look at you, her mother said, pulling her into a hug. You're glowing. Baby girl, I'm happy, Mama. Really, truly happy. They sat in the kitchen, and Elena told her mother about the presentation, about the new initiatives she was planning, about the life she was building. Your grandmother would be so proud, her mother said, her eyes shining. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something beautiful. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. I just kept moving forward. One step at a time. That's all any of us can do. Later that night, Elena sat on her porch with a cup of tea, watching the stars come out. She thought about the past year, the pain, the struggle, the slow, steady work of healing. She thought about how terrified she had been when Marcus kicked her out, how broken she had felt, how certain she was that her life was over. But it hadn't been over. It had just been beginning. She had learned that she didn't need someone else to define her worth, that she was capable of so much more than she had believed, that losing Marcus wasn't the end of her story. It was the start of a better chapter. Somewhere across town, Marcus was probably still struggling, still trying to figure out how he had lost everything. Elena didn't wish him harm, but she didn't wish him well either. He had made his choices. Now he had to live with them. As for Vanessa, Elena had heard through the grapevine that she had moved away, started over somewhere else. Elena hoped she had learned something from the mess they had all created, that she had grown, changed, become someone better. But that wasn't Elena's concern anymore. She had her own life to live. She thought about forgiveness. How Dr. Patel had helped her understand that it wasn't about excusing what Marcus had done. It was about freeing herself from the weight of his betrayal. And slowly, painfully, she had done that. She had let go. Not because Marcus deserved it, but because she did. Her phone buzzed. A text from a colleague at the hospital. Hey, Elena. A few of us are grabbing drinks Friday to celebrate your big win today. You in? Elena smiled and typed back. Absolutely. I'll be there. She set down her phone and looked up at the sky. The stars were bright tonight, clear and endless, full of possibility. Elena Carter had been thrown away like garbage by a man who claimed to love her. She had lost her marriage, her sense of security, her belief in the promises people made. But she had gained something far more valuable. She had gained herself, and as she sat there on her porch, in her house, under her stars, Elena understood the most important lesson of all, that the only person she needed to believe in was herself, that her worth was not determined by someone else's ability to see it, that she was enough. She had always been enough. The betrayal had nearly destroyed her, but it hadn't. Instead, it had revealed the truth she had been too afraid to see, that she was stronger, braver, and more capable than she had ever imagined. And now, finally, she was free. Moral of the story: true strength is not found in avoiding pain, but in rising from it. When betrayal seeks to break us, we discover that our worth was never dependent on those who failed to see it. The greatest victory is not in revenge, but in reclaiming ourselves and building a life rooted in self-respect, truth, and the courage to start again.